3 dirt-cheap minivans. Nobody buys that were built to last forever. A $3,000 minivan sitting on a used lot right now will outlast the $18,000 SUV parked 2 rows over from it. And the salesman standing between the two already knows which one he'd rather sell you. Buyers walk onto that lot assuming a minivan is a throwaway, something you drive until the transmission gives up. So they skip past 3 of the toughest drivetrains ever bolted into a family hauler and reach for a used SUV that just looks tougher. I've spent 20 years with my hands inside these engines, and looking tougher and being tougher turned out to be 2 completely different things. Here's what I'm measuring today. Not horsepower, not cup holder count, not what it does for resale value. Miles per dollar before something expensive breaks. That's the only number that matters once you're the one signing the repair invoice. 3 minivans, 1 framework, ranked by how far each one actually goes before it needs real money spent on it. The one sitting at number 1 is the ugliest vehicle on this entire list, priced like scrap metal, and I still haven't found a way to kill it. Start with the one everybody's already dismissed before I even say the name, the Kia Sedona, 2006 to 2012. The old reputation still clings to it. Cheap, disposable, a brand people wrote off a decade before this generation even existed, and that reputation is doing all the talking instead of the service records. I know a contractor, Dave, who runs a 2-man tiling crew out of the back of whatever he's driving that week, and he bought one for $3,200 specifically to haul tile and grout between job sites without babying it. 4 years and 140,000 miles later, he's replaced brakes and a timing belt. That's the entire list. By this generation, Kia had already borrowed Hyundai's more mature powertrain engineering, a naturally aspirated V6 running through a conventional 5-speed automatic. No turbo lag to manage, no hybrid battery pack to eventually replace at a cost that rivals the price of the van itself. That 3.8-liter Lambda V6 is the same engine family Hyundai was putting in its full-size sedans. Undersquare bore, iron block, nothing exotic, just a motor built with enough displacement headroom that it never had to work hard to move the vehicle. Translate that into real terms. Fewer parts means fewer ways for Dave to end up stranded on a job site with a trailer full of tile. Put that next to what most buyers actually cross-shop, a used Honda Odyssey from the same years running $9,000 to $10,000, and you're looking at a $6,000 gap for comparable miles left in the vehicle. Money Dave put toward a second work van instead. It's not perfect. Owners forget it's a belt and not a chain on that V6, and neglect kills more Sedonas than any actual design flaw does. Snap that belt at highway speed and you're paying for a lot more than the belt. Before you buy one, pull the timing belt service records, check the transmission fluid for a burnt smell or discoloration, and cycle every power sliding door sensor twice before you sign anything. This is the van for the guy who needs cheap, honest cargo space and doesn't care what it looks like parked outside a job site. The second one gets buried for a different reason. The first-generation Toyota Sienna, 1998 to 2003, living in the shadow of its own more powerful, AWD-available successor, and overshadowed further by the Odyssey's reputation for family-friendly features. Nobody cross-shops the original when the newer one exists in the same showroom's memory. A nurse I've worked on cars for, Carla, bought hers at 130,000 miles specifically for the 3-hour drive to see her parents every other weekend, a trip she wasn't willing to trust to just anything after a rough shift. It's past 260,000 now, and the only things that have touched it are a timing belt, brakes, and 1 water pump. That reliability isn't luck, it's shared DNA. This generation runs the same platform and V6 engine family as the Camry of that era, the one MZ-FE, an engine Toyota built during a period when its reputation for longevity was still the thing that sold cars, before cost-cutting narrowed the engineering margins. That motor was designed to survive indifferent maintenance and still clear 300,000 miles, which is exactly what Carla's counting on. Arguably the most over-engineered drivetrain Toyota ever put into mass production, which means Carla isn't gambling her 3-hour drive on an unproven design. She's driving a Camry wearing a bigger set of clothes. Simple port fuel injection, a conventional 4-speed automatic, barely any electronics sitting between her and the road. Cross-shop it against a comparable Odyssey from the same years and you're paying thousands less for a vehicle with a longer documented mileage ceiling, even though the Odyssey still carries the reputation premium at resale. What's not perfect? The timing belt. And water pump need attention on schedule or you're rolling dice with an interference engine. Headlights oxidize until you can barely see through them at night. and there's some interior rattle you eventually learn to ignore. Check that the belt and water pump interval was actually followed. Look for head gasket history, which is rare but documented on early V6 years, and inspect the subframe for rust if it spent winters up north. If you want the highest mileage ceiling per dollar on this entire list, this is your van. Before we go further, forget the badge on the hood entirely. Forget what any of these three look like next to a crossover in a parking lot. The only column that matters here is dollars spent divided by miles gained. And once you start measuring it that way, half the used SUV market stops making sense. If you've made it this far, you're clearly serious about getting more life out of your money than the dealership wants you to. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown. The number one spot goes to the Toyota Previa, 1991 to 1997. The strangest looking vehicle on this list, and, in my 20 years, the hardest one to actually kill. People dismiss it on sight, and I understand why. It's shaped like an egg, mid-engine, with the four-cylinder mounted low and nearly flat under the front seats, in a layout that looks like an engineering mistake rather than an engineering decision. Does the shape actually matter once it's parked in your driveway for a decade? Not once. I bought one myself for under $1,500 as a shop beater, fully expecting it to die within the year and give me something to talk about. It gave me 90,000 trouble-free miles instead, and I eventually sold it to another mechanic who wanted it specifically because of what it's known for among people who actually work on these things for a living, not because of anything he'd seen in an ad. A restaurant owner named Dom runs one of his own, hauling produce between two locations 3 times a week in the kind of stop-and-go city driving that kills lesser vans, and he's passed 210,000 miles on it with nothing beyond routine service. Toyota overbuilt that unconventional drivetrain precisely because the layout was new and unproven at launch. The same defensive engineering instinct that made the Land Cruiser nearly indestructible, except here it's sitting inside a $1,000 to $3,000 minivan instead of a $60,000 truck. Dom's produce doesn't know the difference, and neither does your wallet. What's genuinely not perfect. Supercharged models need their supercharger oil serviced on schedule, or that supercharger becomes an expensive paperweight. Certain years need head gasket attention, and finding a mechanic who actually understands the mid-engine layout takes more effort than finding one for a Camry. Confirm the supercharger service history if it's a supercharged model, check the head gasket and coolant condition for any sign it's been run hot, and inspect the floor pans and rear wheel wells for rust before you hand over cash. If you want the lowest price on this list attached to the longest documented survival record, and you don't mind tracking down a specialist for service, this is the one. The Sedona is the cheap, honest workhorse for someone who just needs space and doesn't care about looks. The first-gen Sienna is the highest mileage ceiling per dollar you'll find in this segment. The Previa is the ugliest vehicle on the used market and the hardest one I've ever tried to kill. None of that had anything to do with badges, and it never does. The vehicles that go the distance are rarely the ones that look like they should. Drive safe.